It's Thursday, August 25th. I'm Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated, joined by Pete Sampson from The Athletic. And this is Irish Illustrated Insider, our first double podcast week, as we are 10 days away from, is it 10? 9 days away from Notre Dame at Ohio State.
That's not soon enough, Tim, is what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely not soon enough. Speculation is losing its momentum at this point of the preseason. But yeah, we had an opportunity yesterday to talk to the tight ends. We went to practice. I watched the wide receivers quite a bit. Tim O'Malley was on the defense. Pete Sampson, I know that you were looking at Cam Hart. Let's start with Cam Hart and where we think he is physically.
Yeah, he moved around okay. They didn't cut it loose in the first 5 periods. Like they did a sort of a sprint at the end of conditioning, which he did not do. But it super amateur opinion here, but like it looked like a guy that probably would play at Ohio State, as long as he just sort of keeps recovering. But Probably not somebody going to push it here on August 25th to go out and
probably somewhere in the vicinity of where he was with the hamstring against Oklahoma State. I'm totally speculating on that, but I mean, it's kind of a similar situation. In terms of timing of everything, I don't know about the.
I would just say I was encouraged by what I saw.
Yeah. Tim, what'd you think?
Well, I think to add further amateur physician analysis here, I think I said to Pete, I bet he couldn't play Saturday, but I bet he could play next Saturday. It was kind of how I looked at it. That was Wednesday's practice, and he didn't want to. I mean, you have a hamstring injury, you're not running a sprint anyway. That doesn't make any sense in practice for warm-up sprints. But yeah, I would be skeptical if they're playing Saturday, but less so since he was out there practicing for 9 days from now.
Yeah, and it's Cam Hart. It's a fairly experienced cornerback that has a high degree of ability, and so the week before game week, you're going to be very careful with him, one way or another.
An important note here, I didn't really think about it. I know Mickey is his technical backup, but really the number one, if Clarence Lewis starts ahead of Tariq Bracy, and the only reason I think he would is because Bracy starts at nickel. I mean, Tariq Bracy can just have some snaps at Cam Hart's field spot too. Like you could do.
That's 50, a good call.
50
no, that's
snaps
a really
for
good
Lewis,
call.
40 snaps for Hart, and 75 snaps for Bracy, and 10 for Mickey or Morrison.
So then would Mickey be at corner and Bracy would be at nickel, or vice versa? That remains to be seen. Probably Bracy at corner. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think that's a pretty good situation. If he's limited, they're feeling really good about Mickey and where Mickey and Bracy are at this stage of camp. We talked to the tight ends yesterday. I got a kick out of Michael Mayer talking about crowd noise, and he just blocks it out. He doesn't hear any of that. I think you can tell by the way he plays that's true.
I actually believed him when he was telling us he doesn't hear the crowd.
No, I do. Yeah, I do too. Who was it? Eric Hansen asked, how did you become like this? Did you have some annoying siblings? And he said, no, I don't think that's how it developed. But yes, I did have some annoying siblings.
That was a really good answer.
The siblings are quite nice. What the heck, Mike?
Where he just shuts it. Well, yeah, that's easy for you to say they're not your siblings, but
yeah.
And I don't know them. I'm not trying to cast aspersions upon them, but Mayer said it, so I'm just following up with it. It was fun. It was a funny little moment, but
gosh, we're even negative about people's family members now.
Oh yeah,
holy cow!
Hey, and that's the second time we talked to Jared Parker, and he's energetic in the interview. He's cooperative. He wants to talk about his position group and his craft, and I enjoy talking to him. That's the second time. It was fun.
Yeah, I think he's a good position coach. I think I asked him a little bit about just like, you have some OC experience, you sort of try to affect the offense a little bit. And I think I was struck by how complimentary and I don't know if respectful is the right word, or just like deferential maybe to Reese, and how much he has learned from him, or just sort of was like, wow, this guy does this at a very, very high level. So but yeah, he's a good interview. He could be a regular rotation guy for me.
Truth, work, results. The tight ends have those little wristbands. Truth, work, results is Parker's mantra, and I think that's interesting. As a former coach, I find that interesting from the standpoint of it starts with truth. And he said truth is not always bad. Sometimes it's good. It's just recognizing where you are in your development, what you need to do, what your strengths are too. And then you put the work in, you get the results. So, the coaching world is filled with little catchphrases, and that's a good one. And I totally agree with the part that it starts with truth, and that can be good or bad in either case. Notre Dame had a verbal commitment over the night or in the afternoon. It kind of was sprung upon us early afternoon. Armel Mukum is a defensive end. He's from Woodbury Forest, which has produced Doug Randolph, CJ Prosise, Greer Martini, all at Notre Dame. He is a raw prospect. I mean, raw to the point of he's played 6 high school games of football, but man, the kid is wired. The kid is wired to be successful. He's physical. He attacks everything he does. You see practice reps. He goes 100% every snap. I think that there's a lot of ability there, but it's long term.
Right.
He needs to play football. He just hasn't played enough football. It's kind of a typical Notre Dame find. You start to get used to the level that Marcus Freeman is recruiting at, and this is a Brian Kelly type recruit, right? I mean, a guy that needs to be developed, but I think there's some long-term potential there, but it's going to take every bit of 5 years.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you look in the 24/7 kind of all-time commit rankings of defensive linemen, and by all-time, I mean since I think 2000. He fits between Ade Ogundeji and Colin Hill. That's very much at the back end of sort of Notre Dame's all-time rankings. But when I look at this kid, I feel like he's the body type is a little different, but like the story is similar to Darren Adgu last year, who at this point, I wish Notre Dame probably wishes that it had.
Yeah.
Because his body type is like, longer and a little more Keon Keeley like. This flip seems like much more of like trying to get another guy who's a strong side end 3 technique than it is trying to replace the weak side end departure of Keon.
Yes, the timing obviously is unfortunate for Notre Dame fandom, is when you sign a defensive end after losing your best prospect.
He's ranked 1067th or something.
Could have thrown a high 4-star quarterback. Could have thrown a high 4-star quarterback in between. Would have been a little better, right? But yeah, I mean, Ogundeji and Colin Hill. I mean, Notre Dame fans would take Ogundeji and Colin Hill. That's for sure. I think one way of looking at it is he's as raw. He's more raw than Colin Hill, because I know even though that defensive line had nothing compared to this one, I mean, Colin Hill had 2 sacks in his second game against the University of Michigan. That's a guy jumping right in. Ogundeji, you figure he started to show out he played well against Clemson in a playoff game in his third year.
Yes.
That's sooner than I think people realize Ogundeji, because we considered him a late bloomer. He really started to play well in his third year. So I guess that's a good litmus. You should start playing in your third year.
He forced his way. He forced Mike Elston to play him
right
in his third year by his effectiveness. Yeah. That's a comparison I've made in terms of career arc. Now, Ogundeji was
an upside too.
Yeah. I mean, Ogundeji was a 5th round draft choice.
Yes.
That I'm sure Armel Mukum would sign up for that now.
I bet he'd be fine with Ogundeji's career captaincy. Though Pete and I were talking. Let's stop talking about Ade maybe when we're talking about this prospect.
Yeah.
Pete and I
career arc is on.
And he's around that number, as Pete pointed out to me yesterday. And I thought, the major difference, without knowing anything about what Ogundeji ended up doing, I think all 3 of us and a lot of people that cover Notre Dame looked at the Ogundeji prospect and thought, you got to give that guy a chance. Look at those long arms. Look at that frame.
Right.
This kid's got long arms. So this kid is long. Yeah. Now, and Pete, you said, I mean, he's a strong side end. He does have some quick twitch to him, quick feet that you could say maybe long-term he could be a Viper, but his body's not, I don't think the body is going to match that. He's a strong side end or a 3 technique, and he should have, considering the guys that he's coming in with and that are in the program, he should have time to go ahead and develop. Now, we were talking before we flipped record here when we thought they would announce the captains. Pete, I think you said maybe announce Monday so that they're available to speak with us on Tuesday when we get into a regular routine. Davis and Patterson are automatic. I think Foskey and Mayer are pretty much automatic. They are automatic. If you go beyond those four, I've speculated as to with Kaiser and Jason Adamalola. What are your thoughts on where this ultimately ends up?
Kaiser, I could see Kaiser being voted a captain for sure. I think that he's sort of respected that way around the locker room and around the program. So he would, I don't know, maybe automatic would be a little strong, but I really, really close. And I think I would probably I would just nick him over Bertrand and Bauer, who obviously are also very well.
I agree with that. I would be surprised if when the players you don't know exactly how they do it. I know when I was coaching, the players sit down and vote. And then the coach, has some, not ripped it up, certainly respected it, but then the coach puts his influence on it a little bit. I certainly think Kaiser's in there. Jason Adamalola, I mean, certainly from a lead by example standpoint, he's been fantastic. The six that I mentioned are 3 offense, 3 defense. And so that works out pretty well.
And I don't like the Davis Patterson is different, but I don't know if Avery Davis, while he would be viewed as a captain, I'm not sure how they want to work that since he's not playing this year.
Well, he couldn't be a captain in a typical regard. He couldn't, so that's probably more in name. So then would you name an extra one so that I don't know. We're going to find out here shortly, but those are the leaders. And I think that, if Brandon Joseph was here longer than a minute, he'd be a captain. I would imagine if he comes back next year, which the only way in Brandon Joseph's mind that he's coming back next year, it's not even in his mind. The only way that
I was wrong.
The only way that the only way I see that happening would be something unfortunate, like an early injury, which nobody wants. So, he probably won't have an opportunity to be a captain in 2023, but it's a good group. There's plenty of leaders to choose from. I mean, there's other guys that are, Lugg's a leader in his own right. Certainly Michael Vincent is a leader in his own right. Maybe they name him one of the captains, Michael Vincent. He's so universally respected within the program, but I don't know. We've had special teams guys before. I've objected to some of those in the past, but not Tyler Newsome. And I wouldn't object to Michael Vincent because they earned it.
Yeah, I think there's just I think Marcus Freeman said it best. If we need to name captains to find leaders, we're in trouble. They have plenty of leaders. That's the SWAT team origination by Bayless and I think Brian Kelly was a great idea. They've been able to flush out leaders in the offseason by doing that, and it works out well.
Yeah, good call. Hey, this segment of Irish Illustrated Insider has been brought to you by Circa Resort and Casino. The biggest pro football overlays in Vegas are back with $12 million in guaranteed prizes only at Circa Sports. 2 ways to win with no rake. Circa Sports Million with quarterly payouts and 100% payback. Play Circa Survivor and select one team each week with no point spread. Take in the big money with $12 million in guaranteed prizes. Enter in Vegas. Play from anywhere. Visit circasports.com for details. Coming back, segment 2, you know the name, Burning Up the Boards.
Here's another Irish tale presented by Do Dublin Tours. Visit dodublin.ie to book your tour today.
There was a period of time in the 19th century in Ireland known as the Golden Era. At its peak, Irish whiskey accounted for 60% of the whiskey sold all over the world. Irish whiskey sales sadly declined for a number of reasons. The introduction of mass production in other countries, using more advanced technologies that the Irish were reluctant to use, along with the War of Independence and Prohibition in the US. The Irish were reluctant to speed up the process, opting for quality over quantity. As a result, the last distillery in Dublin closed in 1976. If you'd like to know more, do Dublin with Do Dublin Tours.
Burning Up the Boards is brought to you by Game Day Your Way. Notre Dame football fans, make your trip to South Bend easy this fall with the help of Game Day Your Way. Services include tailgates, transportation, tickets, and more, making Game Day your one-stop shop for your Notre Dame football weekend. Learn more at GameDayYourWay.com and use promo code IrishPod22 to save 10% on your tailgating package. Segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. First question comes from JCMF. Is Ohio State's defensive line as good as reported by Holly Rowe? Holly Rowe apparently said the Ohio State D-line is going to be spectacular after leaving a practice.
She did, and I saw that. I saw her video before I read the question and included the question, and I included the question because I don't think the Ohio State defensive line is going to be spectacular. I think it can be very good, but I haven't seen anything that says it's a spectacular defensive line. Harrison, Vincent Williams, and Tuitt. I think it's a very good line. They're physical, but I don't see that as a spectacular defensive line. And I think Notre Dame, especially if Jared Patterson can hit the ground running, can have a good day against them.
It's a talented, very talented line based on its recruiting profile, which at this point, like if you're a former 5-star prospect, but you're in your 5th year of college, or even if you're in your 4th year of college, probably your career has not gone the way you thought it has gone, which is what is true for Teron Vincent and for Zach Harrison. But look, if Notre Dame had 4 5-star prospects rolling through its defensive line, I think we'd be talking about how it might be one of the best in the country. The issue with Ohio State is like, there's no Joey Bosa, there's no Chase Young. Like, they don't have the absolute freak dude coming off the edge that you have to set your entire game plan around. And that they have big time recruits who were supposed to be that guy, but they haven't turned out to be that guy in practice. So should be a good defensive line, but I would take Clemson's defensive line over Ohio State's 10 times out of 10.
Oh, yep. Absolutely. 11 times out of 10. Absolutely.
Yeah, spectacular. That is a spectacular defensive line.
Georgia defense 2021 entering the season, you could say that's going to be spectacular and not use hyperbole. Ohio State's offense entering 2022, you could say that's going to be spectacular and not use hyperbole. Alabama, spectacular program. Not exaggerating, but I think we're getting a little lost in words and usage here. If a good group that looks like it could be better than last year's is spectacular, I mean, like, would you ever say Notre Dame's front seven is going to be spectacular, even though it's the best part of their, or would you say, man, I really like that front seven. They're going to keep them in this game. Yeah. It's going to be a good battle.
Well, spectacular is too great of a word for the situation. One thing that I each day I try to spend a little time watching Ohio State from last year, which isn't as accurate a depiction as what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks when we start seeing real-time games. But 2 things stood out to me about Ohio State's defense, which we know was inconsistent when they played against the better competition last year. Number one, they did a terrible job of sealing the edge, especially Zach Harrison. And again, I'm not saying he's not a good football player and he's not going to take the next step up, but they did a terrible job of sealing the edge, and their linebackers missed a ton of run fits. So that's what, as I watch this and not knowing exactly how much progress they've made going into game 1 on September 3rd, this is still a defense that's a little bit vulnerable, but they have Jim Knowles, who I know is going to make them better. But we also know that a lot of times first-time coordinators, the message, and that's true for Al Golden too. I know that Marcus Freeman's still there, but that first time, run through with the players, it usually takes a little bit of time before they get up to speed with the new coordinator.
Not apples to apples, but you watched Notre Dame's offensive tape last year of the offensive line. You would say Notre Dame's offensive line is not that good. I don't know how much they can improve in 1 year. I watched them last year and they were terrible. But they have Harry Hiestand. He might have trouble getting him up to speed by game 1. So we like Notre Dame's offensive line with Harry Hiestand, and I like Ohio State's defensive talent with Jim Knowles.
Yes.
Neither one is necessarily spectacular at this point, though.
No, but they'll have the opportunity to be. Matt Rogers asked, do you see this offensive line being able to get a consistent push in the run game? Pass blocking could be outstanding, but I don't see any maulers up front.
I like the question because I hadn't thought of it. Those are always it. Yeah, I mean, we love the Joe Alt, Blake Fisher pass blocking tackle tandem. Jarrett Patterson, been a very effective pass blocker, and it was, I believe, Isaiah Foskey that I asked him about Patterson, and it was Howard Cross. He said his greatest strength is I get through on the other side, I'm coming around, and somebody on this offensive line this year, this camp always hits me, and it's usually Jarrett Patterson before I'm getting to the quarterback. I thought that was again, that's pass blocking. I thought it was a really good point by Howard Cross.
I guess if Blake Fisher isn't a mauler, like I don't know what, like Isaiah Foskey willingly admitted that he put him on his back in the middle of training camp, which is, I mean, it was a past pro drill, but like I feel like they should be able to run on the outside, especially if you've got as we've seen in camp, like a Fisher-Mayer combination block on the edge. Like, good luck to you. I think you're going to get mauled in that case. So, yeah, it's not Nelson McGlinchey, Bars, Mustapher. This line is not that level of talent, but I think it should be really good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wrote down. I mean, I would certainly put Fisher in the mauler category. Patterson's never been a mauler. I mean, I think he's a very good offensive lineman. But I wouldn't put him in that category. I think, Josh Lugg has not been consistent, but that's one big dude that's a 6-year senior that's going to provide some physicality, especially with him working under Harry Heastand. And Joe Alt's going to take the next step. Correll's a mauler in his own way. He doesn't have the leverage and the stature that some guys do, but he's a mauler in his own way. But I think I agree.
He might have the leverage, right? He might have the leverage and not the stature. Yeah.
But I thought it was a good question. I thought it was a very fair question.
Next from PD Halls, you have 3 choices for quarterback this season, knowing what you get with the first 2, but rolling with the potential on the third. And these seasons are very important. PD Halls knows his stuff. Deshaun Kaiser 2016, that is not his good year. Ian Book 2019, that's the year they lost to Michigan and played in the Cheez-It Bowl. And Tyler Buchner. Because if I said Ian Book 2020 or 2018, he was the MVP of the team in 2018, and Kaiser
right.
Was
that's why
2015.
I at first I was a little confused. I'm like 2019. Don't you mean 2018? But I get when I see what Kaiser where he listed them. I think Tyler Buchner is going to have a very good career. I truly do believe that as a runner and a passer. It's a challenging question. I want Tyler Buchner to be Notre Dame's quarterback from the standpoint that he needs to get his career really launched here, and the sooner the better now. So the combination of Tyler Buchner, the potential in the passing game, and certainly we know what he can do in the running game. I want to see him now, and that's who I would choose then and now. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I went after Kaiser's 2015.
Yeah, that's the
thing. Yeah.
The problem is like you're viewing Kaiser. This question wants you to view Kaiser after 2016 as if you could recreate that year. And like, I was surprised how meh he actually was when I went back and looked at the stats. Like I thought he was better in 2016 than he statistically actually was. Book in 2019, I guess if you can bring Chase Claypool along for the ride, that would, if you could get that stat line from Tyler Buchner, I think Book's 2019 will be a more prolific year than what Buchner has in 2022.
Yeah, I think the Book thing, if you think of 19, is you have 10 touchdown passes against Bowling Green and New Mexico State. You have a bad game that they lost with Michigan, and then you have the Cheez-It Bowl. And that's what people remember from that year, fair or not. I mean, people remember better things from 2020 and 2018 than they do 2019. 2019 was a frustrating year because you just thought, we really thought coming into that year, this podcast, that Ian Book was taking the next step that year after his MVP rookie-ish season of 2018. And he wasn't that much better. Statistically, he was a lot better, but that's a function of who you play. If Tyler Buchner throws 11 touchdowns against Navy and UNLV, but 1 against Clemson and USC, I'm not going to think of him as having a great statistical season, even if he does. But I would take Buchner on these three. Early prediction of Monday Musings was stat line similar to Kaiser in 15, his good year when it's about 11 and a half games, right? 31 total touchdowns, if you count rushing, receiving, and 11 total turnovers. I kind of see that range. It was 10 picks. I remember a fumble against Stanford. I actually don't remember if there's another fumble. I should look that up. But I'm saying 11 turnovers for Kaiser because if there was another fumble, I don't think it mattered like the one against Stanford did in the red zone. But yeah, the 31 touchdowns, 11 turnovers for a 10-2 contending team feels pretty close to a nice launching point for Tyler Buchner's career, right? Just like it was for Deshaun Kaiser.
Here's why I'm bullish on Buchner with the reservations that we've talked about in the past. I think TD production, whether it's, the combination of passing and running, I mean, we all agree that he's probably a double-digit rushing touchdown guy this year or thereabouts. And then the other thing is, I think Notre Dame's red zone should be they should be really good. And a lot of it stems from Buchner and his ability to, once he pulls the read option back in, he turns it up incredibly quickly. And the defense may know it's coming, but his first step is just so explosive and quick that I think that they should be really, really good in the red zone. So, he's got, he's got to be accurate. He's got to prove that he can be accurate. I used a quote yesterday from Tommy Reese in the spring. And it's like, when a guy is open, he not only has to hit him, but he has to hit him right where it needs to be in order for, yards after the catch and stuff. So I am bullish on that standpoint because I think the combination of run, pass, touchdown production, and what he can do to spark the red zone offense is going to be significant.
Honestly, though, also if Tyler Buchner has only 7 rushing touchdowns and 20 passing touchdowns, but he has 11 runs where he runs Notre Dame into the red zone and underestimate scores. It's a heck of a job by Tyler Buchner. It doesn't have to be like Ian Book scored 3 touchdowns in his first start in 2018 against Wake Forest. We weren't all watching the game going, oh my God, look at that guy. Those 3 1-yard runs. It didn't matter. He scored 4 touchdowns in his second year as a starter. Tyler Buchner is going to put Notre Dame in position for many points this year.
I think that's a good call, Tim. Question from Capelli. Based on what you've seen and heard about Steve Angeli, if Buchner has a season-ending injury, do we even say those words out loud? If Buchner has a season-ending injury in week 1, what odds would you give Drew Pine or Steve Angeli to be the starter in the Coliseum to end the season at USC?
I go heavily in Pine's favor here. The only problem with Pine is Pine's the first one in. So he would be the one that has to make it through 10 more games at a very high level, right? It's like,
but based upon the way the question's asked, Pine stays healthy through the whole thing.
I think Pine would be the starter. I think if there was any quarterback competition at all, it indicates that they wanted to give Pine a chance because he deserved it against Tyler Buchner, who's a superior player. So I think they're ready to roll with Pine if Buchner gets hurt.
Yeah, if Pine's healthy, 100%, he's the starter.
Yeah, I think we've all been impressed. I have not seen a red flag with Angeli.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're grading on a curve, of course.
Right. He has stature. He has, he was the one opportunity in the blue goal game. He let him down for a touchdown. I like the way the ball comes out of his hand. I think he has a pretty decent degree of presence on the field for a true freshman, but you have to keep in mind, the mastery of the playbook, which Ian Book, if it's not 100%, he's right there as far as the mastery of the playbook. Now, execution, all that, and size, and that all comes into play. But we don't know where Angeli is in terms with the playbook and handling all that stuff. So, I would think the odds would be very, very slim unless Angeli between now and then, or maybe even now, he's that close. Has Tommy Reese said anything about his mastery of the playbook? I'm not sure that he's been presented with that question or not, but this isn't, looking at it from a coach's perspective, Drew Pine knows the offense and Steve Angeli probably doesn't. Not to the extent.
Well, he's about to go to the scout team. He's on the scout team too.
Right, so exactly. So that's good. That will. Yes, that's a good point. That will stunt his development during the 2022 season.
Next from Pin and Pull, What true freshman burned their red shirt in 2022? And this is much better to answer than would have been 2 weeks ago. I think we have a good idea.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll throw out the first name. You guys take turns and we'll go
right.
around.
Beautiful.
Mickey.
Yes.
No, I'm going to say a name. Now you say a name. Well, yeah, we all have to agree on that.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
I don't know. What kind of game are we playing here?
I don't know, but it's ruining the bar atmosphere of this game right now. People enjoying themselves talking about football.
We're playing it on the fly here. Sorry.
Tuitt Halamaka.
Merriweather.
McPherson.
I was going to say, we talked to one this week. McPherson.
Yeah, McPherson.
All right. Now I get into, I think there's 4 game situations for players. I think if I have to pick one more, I'm picking Morrison. But I'm going to ask you guys a question. Don't you think they can get 4 games out of all these players in special teams and whatever else? Holden Stays, Eli Raridan, Tyson Ford, Josh Burnham, and if he develops because of special teams and stuff and a backup rover, Snead.
I don't think Ford and Burnham really are candidates
Burnham's on
to be anything more than a red
They're
shirt.
on varsity though, and they got to play. You got to play 12 games. So like, if you're on varsity and you got to play 12 games, and Burnham I thought might have been starting on one of the coverage teams I was looking at too.
Okay, fair enough.
And Ford kept his jersey. And that's my new saying for camp, by the way. Keep your jersey. You're on varsity. Instead of get on the bus, you keep your jersey. So I think those guys can all play 4 games though. If you have a healthy Bauman, Mayer, and maybe more from the tight ends.
I haven't watched enough of special teams that diligently to know like who's where and what. I would just I wrote down 8 guys, and it's like maybe you could, and it's really 7.5 in the sense of like maybe you play Raridan but not Stays, maybe you play Stays but not Raridan. Like maybe only one guy goes over 4 games.
So you try to get 8 games out of those 2. That kind of thing.
If you have to get 12, you can get 8 and 4 or whatever.
Yeah,
I feel like the only freshman I'm like, well, there are 2 freshmen on special teams who I'm pretty sure are going to burn it. McPherson, obviously, but I think Tuitt Halamaka will definitely burn it as well.
He starts on from what I've watched, Tuitt Halamaka's out there on every special teams. He was taking reps post-practice with McPherson and Sherwood yesterday. Like those guys are not McPherson, excuse me, John Sott.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to watching the development of new athlete Tuitt Halamaka because he's going to be really good. Jared Parker said yesterday, Raridan and Stays. I mean, I don't have the exact quote on my lips here, but that they're going to use them during this season. Now,
but you can use them for 4 games too.
No, but I mean, it sounded like more than that, and I don't like, where are they moving it? Are they ahead of Kane Barong?
Based on practices.
Well, right. And I kind of suspected from the way the discussion went with the tight ends that they were with Jared Parker yesterday. So
I think you're right. The way he said it, they're going to get the opportunity because they've earned it.
Yeah,
on the front end of this. So,
and don't you think sometimes? I mean, there's too much emphasis on trying to preserve it. Just play them. I mean, they're good. I mean, they're good. They're good. I mean, we know they're going to be good. So just play them. They're probably not going to be around for 5 years anyway. So
no. Outside the guys the only guy we named that could be the 5-year guys would be like Ford and Burnham could benefit. Tyson Ford could benefit from being able to come back like Khalid Kareem did. Are you kidding? We can't act like it's impossible to come back for a 5th year if you're a good defensive end.
Yeah,
like there's guys that can come back for a 5th year. We just said Ade Ogundeji. He could come back for a 5th year. Like it's offensive line and guys like Ford you could preserve them. Howard Cross and Jacob Lacey are going to start next year because they had a chance to Lacey's was COVID, but Howard Cross gets to be back next year because we loved him. They played him 4 games.
Yeah. I would suggest, and again, Tim, you are a little bit more in tune with the personnel on special teams, but what about I always want to say Dusty Ziegler. I can't get Dusty out of my head when I want to talk about Nolan Ziggler, but how involved has he been with special teams?
I saw him earlier in camp with special teams. He was wearing a scout team number, but that's because they're in game week prep at this point. I would think if he plays, he's a 4-game guy because Nolan Ziggler could benefit from a 5th year. Jack Kaiser, JD Bertrand, Bo Bauer, Drew White, Nolan Ziggler, like all those guys.
That's
we
true.
forgot Jabron Payne.
I was just
right
going
now,
to say Jabron Payne. If something happens at running back, Payne would be the last guy that I suggest. And you're right, Tim, that well, they did it with Kaiser. I mean, they like Kaiser as a freshman, but they stopped using him on special teams so that they would preserve the year. But with Raritan and Stays, if they're legit and you need them and you want to use them and they can help your offense,
and you're going to need them too. So good call. That's true.
I just say go for it. Question from a 92797 blah 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 scout. Marcus Freeman has stated that he wants to be able to run the ball at will. When compared to the play calling against Oklahoma State, how do you see the Reese Freeman dynamic playing out in terms of offensive balance? There were times during the Brian Kelly era when Kelly seemed to err too much toward the passing game. Do you see a better balance and more emphasis on ball control moving forward?
First of all, when did Brian Kelly ever emphasize the passing game too much, guys? I'm not sure that. Oh wait, he did do that. That's true.
As I was looking through Kaiser's 2016 season, I was like,
certainly not.
And he completed 30% of pass. Oh, NC State game.
that's a good. No, it's a very good question. I mean, when compared to Oklahoma State game, I can't imagine if they abandon the run, it's going to end up worse than the Oklahoma State game did against at the Horseshoe against Ohio State. That was ridiculous. I mean, I know they couldn't run, but they also didn't have a good offensive line. So my question there is, to this day, is how Tyler Buchner can't come in to help an offense that cannot run the ball whatsoever to save its life in 8 possessions. But it's over. So it's not my job to figure out when. Just telling you, he could have helped.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But again, I wrote about that. I know there were 3 drop passes in the second half. That if you're the offensive coordinator saying, why do I want to take Jack Cohn out? He just put it on his hands and he dropped it on third down.
Because we can't run, but that's why. That's the only reason.
I certainly see both sides. I'm not strong one way or another on that, but when you break down the second half, there were some physical miscues on the part of the offense that stopped those drives. But I mean, I'm sure that the decision with the ground game against Oklahoma State was done in accordance between Marcus Freeman and Tommy Reese, but Tommy Reese was the play caller and they did stay away from the running game there. So, but look, Reese wants balance. I know a lot of people have said, play keep away from Ohio State. I don't want Notre Dame playing like that. You don't want Notre Dame's offense playing like that. I mean, this is your quarterback. This is your offensive line where you like your running backs. You have a great tight end. You have depth there. You don't have a lot of depth at receiver, but the guys that you're putting out on the field to start, you feel pretty decent about. Those days, Notre Dame needs to move beyond that. I don't think that you can just go into a game and say, we're not going to run the football and expect to come out on top in a game like that.
You mean pass?
What did I say?
Run the football. They're going to
You know what I mean? You know how easily I confuse my words these days.
The run and the pass.
Just when I do that, I'm asking, you just did it there. Do it more often when it happens, because I know it happens more often.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they abandoned the run game 3 weeks before the Fiesta Bowl. Like the entire game plan was to not run the ball. It's not like they started the game or like, let's kind of feel our way out here.
No, you're absolutely right.
And if Kyron Williams was out and your offensive line was really struggling, and you're going against a top 5 run defense, I probably would not bang my head into that wall either. But, against Ohio State, they're not a top 5 run defense, and your offensive line should be better. It's better coached, and you have a mobile quarterback back there. I don't think Notre Dame needs to play keep away against Ohio State, but I would, if there's such a thing as like 4-minute offense or 8-minute offense, like that's the kind of style of offense I think Notre Dame should play.
I lean that way a little more too, and this is too small of a sample size, but like Ohio State's losses, they still got 80 and 85 snaps off. It sometimes, like Michigan had 61 snaps in that win over Ohio. They had 18 fewer snaps than Ohio State, and Oregon had 13 fewer snaps than Ohio State. You would not guess that. But maybe it's because they know when I do think Notre Dame needs to know when to downshift a little bit. Like we've overanalyzed Michael Mayer scoring a touchdown to go up by 21 points with under a minute left at Oklahoma State, saying that was a bad thing. Maybe they do have to downshift a couple plays and think, hey, can we keep this momentum going? But points are the most important things. If any Notre Dame fan ends this game by saying they never should have scored those fast touchdowns, I mean, you need 35 points. Fast touchdown, slow touchdown. 4-minute touchdown, 8-minute touchdown. You need plenty of points to win this game.
And the reason Michigan only needed 61 snaps is they averaged 7 yards a carry, and they scored 6 touchdowns on 61 snaps. So
6 touchdowns are great. That's what you need to do, is get the touchdowns any way you want. But I get it. I get what you're saying, Tim, that it's the days of playing a little scared or over. I know exactly what you're saying.
I mean, I agree with what both you guys are saying, that there are times where, okay, you can let the clock run a little bit. But Notre Dame needs to, in order to get to the next level, they can't be at the stage where they're just avoiding running the football when you're playing your the best competition. I mean, no, you're not going to get to the playoffs. No, you're not going to win playoff games if that's the approach that you have to take.
Next from ND Yinzer. How do you see the running back snaps shaking out in Columbus, assuming that Diggs is full go? Do you think we'll see an even split, more Tyree snaps from the slot? Is he forgetting Estime a little bit? Is he the only Notre Dame fan forgetting Estime?
Estime is going to have the most carries against Ohio State.
Yeah, I think
agree with that?
Yeah, unless you count touches, maybe Tyree could be up there. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Carry. Yeah. He'll have the most carries. Well, Tyree in the slot against Jim Knowles' defense, I think, yes, that'll be part of it. Notre Dame had success with that, especially early in the game. Diggs, I think you want to be a little bit careful. You don't want he shouldn't be the guy that has the most carries, right, in this game.
No,
as he's coming back from this.
No, definitely not.
So I would say Estime 1. Yeah, when you put it in terms of touches, Tim, I'll say Estime 1, Tyree 2, Diggs 3.
I agree. Distant third too. Help them out a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's Estime and Tyree. Those are your 1 and 1A, and then Diggs is your 3.
And it might
this
be
week.
It might be Estime most carries, Buchner second most carries, Tyree third most carries, second most touches, and Diggs way behind those 3 guys in carries. This week.
That's a good point. Infusing Buchner into that equation, because he's going to run the football. How many times?
Yeah,
double digits.
I hope Styles gets a jet. I hope Lindsey gets one. Like, those two could need to get one as well. Let's keep everything. There's enough guys to come at Ohio State. You might as well use them.
And I want Micah Bell to get a jet sweep too. Oh, we're going to have to wait for that one. Terry Benedict asks, it was 2nd and 20 and Michael Mayer caught a pass for 12 yards, but needed a breather and is out. It's now 3rd and 8. Who are you going to? The defense appears to be double teaming Lorenzo Styles.
I think that's
I'm offended by this question.
Timeout.
Why?
Yeah, you call a timeout.
Timeout.
So
or you accept reality. Michael Mayer is not coming out of the game. Terry Benedict.
Right. There are 2 things. Are right. First of all, he doesn't come out, and 2, you call timeout if he has to. Yeah. If his shoe blows up, and you got to redo it like Zion.
Yeah, it would have to be a shoe blowing up or an injury, because he's not coming out for a breather.
He doesn't get injured though,
but
so
that's not really the point of the question now, is it? I think
no. I don't know. Who is your call? Who is your call?
I would say Jaden Thomas.
Ooh, his helmet comes off. He has to come off. There we go. We got to answer the question now.
Okay. Then you can call a timeout.
I say Jaden Thomas. I mean, Marcus Freeman said he's got to be the guy that, when it's man coverage, he wins. He wouldn't say that if he didn't think that that was an option. Lindsey, of course, Lindsey, 5th-year senior. Yeah, you want to be able to go to him. Merriweather with his size. I say Jaden Thomas.
I would throw that beautiful, angled screen to Tyree that they worked, like Tony Jones against Syracuse is one of my favorite plays that Tommy Reese has ever called.
Oh, that's the circle thing? Yeah, that was
where they just do it at an angle and cut back, and the receivers hit at the right time and block it up. So I would go to Tyree, but again, this question is invalid.
All right, next from Pro DUC7. Losing Keon Keeley obviously sucks because he's a stud, but am I crazy to believe that it's not a big deal? Yes, you are. Can I not read the rest of this or not?
No, you have to read the rest of it.
The defensive line has arguably been the most consistent position group, and I can't think of a big game that we've lost in the past 5 years because of their poor play. Positions such as receiver, defensive back, running back, linebacker, quarterback, and even the OL have been more problematic. I don't think this has as much of an effect on the program as missing out on Dante Moore, and ignore the CJ Carr storyline around that one.
Who starts at Viper next year? Is there an automatic choice that starts at Viper next year?
No,
Keon Keeley would have been an automatic choice, I would imagine. Not having seen them on a college field. I agree with the premise of it that, yeah, the defensive line has been a constant for Notre Dame during these last 5 years, but you're losing Foskey and Justin Adamalola. And Keon Keeley's a stinking beast, man. I mean, I like what they're doing recruiting wise on the D line, but we're talking about a pure pass rusher, and they're losing their two best at end.
Yeah, it's like, would Notre Dame have made the BCS national championship game if Stefan Tuitt had stuck with Georgia Tech?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I'm with you, Pete.
I mean, I rarely put it on one guy, but when you put it that way, that's a pretty important.
Well, and Stetson Bennett notwithstanding.
Yeah.
If you're going,
and look, they did make it with, even though Aaron Lynch transferred, just to be fair.
Yeah.
But
they had cap. Yeah, no, I think I still believe college football, modern college football, to win a playoff game and to get there, quarterback, defensive line, offensive line, second string defensive line. You guys tell me your fifth from there. Like that. That's how I rank what you need. Quarterback, defensive line, offensive line, second string defensive line,
corners.
I would put receivers probably above second string.
You need all of that.
You need
all of that.
You need Keon Keeley. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you do.
I'm just saying, like, if you watch college football playoff games and like the teams that are winning, they have killers on the outside.
Yeah, I thought Georgia had a good defensive line situation going on though for that game too. They looked like they might have been all right.
Yeah, if you have all first round picks on your defensive line, I guess that's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with the fact that Notre Dame's D line's been good, but you as you guys,
it has to keep being good. It has to keep being very
right.
Good.
And that guy that's probably going to end up at Alabama would keep them elite at the Viper position. Question from CMU Pens fan. What were your memories of covering the Manti Te'o catfishing story as it happened? First of all, let's all say where you were when you heard this.
That's good.
Heard about it. Because, like when Elvis died, not that you guys can relate to that, but when Jack Freeman, everybody knows where you were.
Elvis Costello?
I was 17, maybe 16, working in a supermarket when the ladies coming in to shop were crying because Elvis had died. This isn't quite as well. I shouldn't say that. Where were you when you heard the Manti Te'o story?
I was at Panera with my daughter Sloan, who I think was 2 at the time. My wife Dinah was at a legal sort of development meeting in the evening with the wife of Notre Dame's SID, Kara, and I was like, I gotta go. And so she was unavailable. I dropped Sloan at our neighbors and booked it to Notre Dame.
Remind me. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
I came back from a jog and had 45 text messages and about 10 voicemails. One of them from ESPN saying, "Can you go on with Linda Cohn in an hour to talk about this Manti Te'o situation that I did not know existed?"
Hey, remind me when it broke in relation to the national championship game.
It was 5:00 in the afternoon when I came back from the jog. So
I mean, what
so the
next
game was the 7th. Brian Kelly was in Philadelphia on the 8th. This is awesome. That was I want to say it was around the 13th. Am I off on that? I'll look it up while you guys
yeah, I thought it was the week after.
The week after, so about the 13th. Yeah.
I mean, I literally I don't remember which day it was. I thought I was coming home from
I was definitely home for a bit at that point, but
so obviously I was too, but I remember that I was with my wife. I know exactly what stoplight we were approaching when I heard it, and it's like what? I mean, it's one of those that you see it and you can't believe it. Like the time when I came home and walked through my garage door and looked up and my front door was laying on the floor because somebody had broken in.
Oh,
you look at your front door on the floor and you're like, what? Right. How can that even be possible? It was similar to that.
It looks like the 16th. At least that's when the Deadspin story. I mean, clearly the Deadspin story was the one. So January 16th, 2013.
Okay.
Manti Te'o's dead girlfriend. The most heartbreaking, inspirational story of college football season is a hoax. That is an amazing headline. Okay.
That is amazing. Okay. CMU Pens fan really doesn't care where we were when we heard. His question was what our memories beyond that were about the catfishing story.
Mine was I had to go find a babysitter.
Yeah.
No, this is my memory of it.
You
to be
did
honest
a great job of answering.
That's really my memory of it. And then everything got weirder the whole off season.
We were standing around talking about this yesterday outside of practice, actually, and it was like, not to say that I or we knew Manti Te'o really well, but if we knew Manti Te'o, we've been around Manti Te'o enough to be sympathetic towards what had happened, because I don't know if I want to use the word naive, but we understood that it could happen to Manti Te'o because he's a trusting, loving human being.
The naive is in there too. Naive's in there too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was I mean, I remember once it hit like the Dr. Phil level, I'm like, I'm out on this story. Like I have nothing to offer it on anymore. Like as soon as like you sort of talk to teammates and like, could you believe this? Yeah, this is crazy. Like that was about all that I had to cover on that. Just because there wasn't a whole lot of other writing to be done. And then you get to the Dr. Phil, Katie Kirk levels, and you're just like, this is insane.
I will find my editorial from that night or 2 nights later. It was after Swarbrick spoke. Well, that was that night, I guess, because I never believed Manti Te'o was into the hoax, and I always believed.
No way.
And I always believed he mildly embellished or greatly embellished.
Well, that's what we were talking about yesterday. That had he not used the term "love of my life,"
I wrote it that night, and I believe it.
A dear friend. Had he said a girlfriend,
right? All of it.
Because ultimately, when you say "love of my life," you've got to prove that you've met her in person. I mean, it's just so the reaction now. Deadspin. It's incredibly unprofessional, but you can certainly understand why everybody's chasing the story.
I'm not putting Manti in the more than 5% culpable, but it would have been quelled if he said a woman very close to me, a girl I've been talking to.
I agree. But I still believe that generally speaking, that's how he felt.
Yeah, no, that's true. You know what? It's easier now that the Netflix documentary comes out 10 years later. It is easier now for people growing up or at high school and college to think, except Pete pointed out, now you would see the person because of, Facebook and Skype works and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. But like back then, it was weird to hear, like, what do you mean you're only dating her online when he's a college football player that obviously could find other dates?
When did FaceTime come in?
It was around back then, but it never worked.
You wouldn't.
It must.
Yeah, okay. You wouldn't. It's true.
Well, yeah, when I tried to do it, it didn't work. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Question from Star Sevic Frank. Who do you think will have a better career at Notre Dame, Ian Book or Tyler Buchner? Now, if I could first say, Ian Book threw for nearly 9,000 yards, 72 touchdowns, only 20 interceptions, rushed for 1,500 yards plus 17 touchdowns, and the stat that we all pin on quarterbacks, he had 30 wins as a starting quarterback. So we're assuming Buchner is a 3-year starter.
Yes, and goes pro.
To match Ian Book's time.
And Book lost to Clemson, national champion, Clemson, national runner-up, Alabama, national champion, a fine Michigan team and a fine Georgia team that we thought was better than fine. But that would be the breakdown of his losses.
So better career. That's a very subjective phrase. Buchner,
happiness pod, Buchner.
I mean, I'll say comparable. More rushing yards.
Hear that, Twitter?
More rushing touchdowns. The 72-20 touchdown to interception ratio. I think,
but that doesn't matter.
Will be higher than that.
Yeah, would you agree that he'll have more than 20 interceptions, but by throwing downfield more, you have more big plays that you've created for your offense too? Like, it's okay if he has 24 interceptions in 3 years as a starter, right? 25 interceptions.
That's a good point, because he is more inclined. He is more capable of throwing the deep ball than Book. Now,
different type of runner, obviously.
Yeah. Now how consistent he'll throw the deep ball. Yeah. All this stuff, all this speculation about Tyler Buchner, like his improvement and accuracy, none of that matters until it's done in a game. It's just words until it's done in a game.
Yeah, but he also shouldn't be judged on his first game.
Well, okay.
Completely.
So
completely
one of two things is going to happen.
Yeah.
He's going to play well, and I'm going to be told that I'm a complete idiot and don't know anything that I'm talking about, or he's going to struggle, which is probably more likely just because of the setting in the first start. And
we'll
then
still call you an idiot, though.
Okay, well, go right ahead. And then the other side of the coin will be Buchner's not good. He's never going to be good. He can't do this. He's never going to be accurate enough. I never say he's never going to be accurate enough. I'm talking about all that matters right now. But I just don't want, if he struggles, I don't want the extremes, as if I can control it. I don't want the extremes of fans saying he sucked. You can't just walk in. If he walks into Ohio Stadium and plays well and leads Notre Dame to victory, holy crap. I mean, everything changes, but I think the odds are against that. The odds are against him putting up huge numbers against Ohio State.
If I could just be really reductive to this question, if Tyler Buchner wins a college football playoff game, he will have had a better career than Ian Book. If he doesn't, it's going to be very difficult to match all those statistics and be a 4th-round pick that you've already mentioned.
And play in 2 and start in 2 college football playoff games too. So those were fun to cover.
Well, if you win one, you've started in 2.
Oh, right. Well, 2 different years is pretty good thing too. That was be fun if Tyler Buchner gets to 2 and wins 1 or wins a couple.
Yeah. Does Ian Book get credit for 2 playoff appearances so that he would have to match that? I don't know.
I agree with Pete, though. If you win a game in a playoff, that's
I like it. I like it. All right, we're going to wrap up with Panthers 23-23. What is more likely? Tommy Reese leads a prolific offense and gets a head coaching gig, or Al Golden leads a prolific defense and gets a head coaching job? Or will both happen? Which coach on the current staff, this is the second part of the question, which coach on the current staff is most likely to replace whichever coordinator departs?
I don't have an answer for that part. I think they would get another coordinator.
Jared Parker's the only.
I think they would get another coordinator.
Offensive guy. Yeah, I agree. But Jared Parker has coordinating experience, and nobody else does on defense outside of Golden.
I feel like Reese is more likely to get a head coaching job than Al Golden. I think Al Golden probably needs a little bit of career rehab, so to speak. Yeah. Like a couple years at Notre Dame are like, okay, got it back together. Like learned a lot from Miami, up with the times in modern college offenses in terms of defending them. I think he'd be a really good head coaching candidate, but probably needs more than 1 year to prove it, I would think.
I would not see Golden leaving after 1 year, short of 14-0, and they shut down Alabama in the playoff game. And, where you're just, obviously you have to hire the guy. Like that's, Al Golden was not, I don't think Al Golden's leaving after 1 year, but I don't think he'll be here 3. That's kind of a weird way to say it, but I would be surprised if Al Golden's here for 3 years. I'd be shocked if he leaves after this year.
Yeah, and I think Tommy Reese's path is NFL offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So if you take head coach out of it.
And then college head coach. Unless somebody wants to step out and make him as a college head coach, but it would probably be a program that was really struggling. But I'd like to see what Tommy Reese can do as an offensive coordinator in the NFL, because I think he's going to be really good. I think he's in the process of doing that right now. But I think Notre Dame would go outside the program for both of those hires, don't you?
For sure.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to wrap up there. It's our third podcast of the week, including a recruiting podcast with myself and Kevin Sinclair. Check that out on Irish Illustrated if you have not. We will be, next time although I guess, Tim, you and I are going to have an instant analysis. It's our last instant analysis of 25 minutes of practice.
Name something in our industry that is more exciting when it starts and more ready to be the hell done with it when it ends than practice viewing in August.
August camp beginning is pretty awesome. And man, oh man, it is time for a game to be played.
Well, when you get a full practice, it's great.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you feel like you really saw something, and you just don't. Like a lot of people have said, well, you're not commenting on the quarterbacks. We're not going to say a whole lot about quarterbacks when the whole time that we're in there, they're throwing student managers.
And if we do, it's a problem, if you recall. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, very
true. I was told it wasn't a problem.
So we will be next time we do a Irish Illustrated Insider podcast, it will be game week. And Marcus Freeman will meet with the media at 12. And per usual, or as we did last year, we'll get together. The three of us will convene shortly thereafter and kick off Notre Dame Ohio State week on Monday with a podcast. Thanks for joining us. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.